an ultimate global podcast. Hello, and welcome to our special weekly podcast on trending international and social affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.
So, welcome to another exciting episode of Ultimate Global Podcast. We are 2 days before our anniversary when we are going to celebrate the 1 year of Ultimate Global Podcast. In this podcast, we are going to talk about this topic of choosing tech sales as a career. A lot of people whom I'm connected on LinkedIn always are worried about how their career in tech sales will look like, what are the challenges they generally face. For this topic, I specifically chose someone who is already having an experience in this field. His name is Jonathan. He's joining us from, if I'm not wrong, Germany.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
correct.
he's an account manager at Plusserver. So, Jonathan, I would definitely want to start off this podcast with this question as to how will you describe your experience in tech sales and how's been your journey so far in this sector?
First of all, thanks for having me and for inviting me. And how should I start? So many people are worried that their grades in school are very bad and they have not been good in computer science and stuff like that. So to start with, in my career and in my school years, I was very bad in school as well, and I was like very bad in computer science, and I even deselected it in the last years of my college. So when I first started, I was like, what should I do with my life and where to start? So we in Germany, I'm not quite sure. Do you have like an apprenticeship system as we do over here? I don't think so.
So you mean some sort of internship?
Yeah, for example, like that.
Yeah, so in Australia also we have got internships or probation period where you have to complete a minimum of 3 to 6 months and then that job becomes permanent for you.
Okay, so for us in Germany, it's like you have to do it 3 years, and in these 3 years you need to go to school as well, and after that you can start the career. So I did that as an IT system administrator, and everyone was saying to me like, "Oh, you were bad in school, and you cannot do that because in tech you have to be a very good student and stuff like that." So I was kind of worried because from my past, I could say I was very bad in school, and just because of that, I was very worried. And in the end, I can definitely say that I was one of the best in school and one of the best that started the career in my company at that time. So you don't need to be worried about that. And after my apprenticeship, I started at Bechtle. The company is called Bechtle, and I was responsible for a global project, which is like selling hardware to a big company. And that was kind of useful because it was teaching me a lot of lessons, and I was responsible for one certain project, and I was taking care of that, and it was my baby, and that was good. But I was missing like the whole sales cycle. So I was not responsible for the acquisition and the part before like making a project. So I was looking after 5 years for a new perspective in my life. So I joined Plusserver, which is giving me the whole sales cycle and a good leader. And yeah, so that is very important for me right now. And yeah, so I'm 7 years in the tech sales right now, and I guess it's still a learning lesson, and you always need to learn. But it's a lot of fun if you're into it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for describing your experience to all of us. I'm sure that people who are a lot experienced in this field must have synchronized with you. But the people who are new to this field might be thinking, what are the skills that we should learn to get into this field? Um, some of the common skills that I really utilize, and I'm still learning those skills in terms of negotiating with the customers in the right way, winning the value and making and creating a value for them first rather than just creating a value for your own self, and just looking into your profits and understanding and putting yourself in the customer's shoes, and showcasing some empathy towards them, which kind of makes them feel important when you are selling anything, isn't it?
Yeah, it is definitely. Well, first of all, sales can teach you a lot of life lessons, and everything helping in life is like helping in sales. And what is most important, I guess, is work your ass off and be different to all the others and just try to learn. That's what is helping me a lot. And well, if I'm following one of my most likable LinkedIn influencers, he's always saying you need to be communicative. So if you hate communication, if you don't like people, that's not helping at all. So that's something you definitely need to have in case. So, but when you were saying negotiation, most important in sales, and still a lot are not doing it, is like qualifying, talking to the customer, and seeing what especially is your need. It's not about features and functions of your solution, because like everyone is having that, and everything, every solution is somehow getting more and more similar. So in order to be different, you need to like, we are talking to people, so it's not like a business and features and functions. So um, be different to all the others, talk to people and find out what they need, and what they themselves need, not only the business but also what themselves need. And that is very, very important. And apart from that, you need to be consistent in what you're doing, and also don't be like you know, just self-doubts or something like that. That's not helpful at all. So because not always in sales you're getting the results you wish to, because it's sometimes hard. You're getting through tough times, you're not getting the deals, you're not getting a new customer, and that's where you need to be confident on what you're doing, and exactly that you need to follow. Don't have doubts on yourself. That's very, very important, and be eager to learn. And I guess that's all, and then you're good to go. It sounds easy, but it is definitely not, and you need to have practice.
Absolutely, and I think some of the companies have got a very structured internship program these days, where
Yeah.
they will run you through a boot camp. They will have a very structured way of giving you the training about the product and the market and the way you can sell. How far do you think that kind of a program? Yeah, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I want to say something regarding that. So that's exactly, especially my company right now. So that's why I was joining that company. My boss is someone who's like a leader. He's not someone who like is still working operational. He can, and he is sometimes to help us, but most important, he is a leader for us. He's standing behind and watching all the deals and giving you tips on what to do. So that is very important as well. So if you're looking for a job in tech sales, watch out on the leader you're joining, because that is very important for you, even or especially if you're a young person or maybe someone who's coming from a completely different area. So take a look out for that. And well, and that's not very usual for every company, but in our case, we also have like someone external, a sales, well, an expert. So he's like also looking on our sales cases and giving us tips, and that from a completely different angle than our boss. So take a look out for that, and that is helping you as well to get inside of the job and in the area. Yeah.
Yep. I think that's fantastic, Jonathan. I just wanted to understand from you also related to these two important components of networking and social selling. These days, it's becoming very popular. Just before this podcast, you asked me this question: what is your motivation behind starting off with your own podcast? What is your motivation behind starting off with these bushwalks or coastal walks that you want to do in Sydney? And I just explained you the concept of networking and how I love meeting people. I love talking to people. And I love making face-to-face connections as well as virtual connections. One of the best ways you can do is run a podcast, call a person to your podcast, and build a connection, build a quality connection. You might not get something from him directly, but there is always a quality connection that can help you to reach somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So even if you're not getting something out of the call or out of the meeting or out of the podcast directly, you know the person, and then afterwards, maybe after 1 year, you think, oh man, I have one case and I know this guy can do it. So you can connect. And that's pretty amazing. Just this week, I had a call with someone from LinkedIn as well. He's in a similar position to me, and I think the exchange with people is just amazing. So you know, how is he working, how am I working, you can compare, you can learn something from him. So that is very amazing. And I think like the tech the platform LinkedIn is just amazing to meet new people, to connect. And it's not just about business. I mean, of course, it would be live. I would be saying like I'm not participating to like work on my personal brand in this podcast. That, I guess that's obvious, and that's the same for you as well. And that's for everyone who's using LinkedIn like active. Um, and that's what it's all about. Stay connected, connect to people. It doesn't matter on their position. Always be nice and try to help everyone. And that's very, very important. You need to be helpful. You need to be a good guy, so people remember you. That is very important for me as well. I try to help people as much as I can, and that's awesome. So, but what you were saying as well in your question is that people like to meet in person as well. So in my experience, due to Corona, everything was going online: Teams, Zoom, WebEx, Skype, whatever it is called. This was good, and this is still good, because you don't need to go to I don't know. For me, Munich is very far away in Germany, and you need to drive like 5, 6, 7 hours. Well, for you guys in Australia, this is just around the corner. But anyways, but for instance, some people like to just have a change, and if you have an important meeting, just go there and meet them in person, and you will notice it's going to make a huge difference. Sometimes just go out there and meet them in person. And from my experience, this is not happening a lot anymore due to Corona, and everything is going online. But have that in mind and maybe change that for some meetings. Yeah. Yeah, and what's the role for networking and LinkedIn? I think that is also changing, because the next customers are going to be the digital natives. So we need to change as well. So if you want to have customers in future, just start with LinkedIn right now, so everyone sees your expertise, so who you are, what you're doing, and where you are an expert in. And well, if the customer in future is seeing your LinkedIn profile, for example, he can contact you, or maybe you can have an outreach yourself on some customers. And I think that's just amazing. So start using it.
Yep, and I think one of the examples that I really want to share here, last evening in Sydney, I attended a networking event
I've
where
seen that.
I was invited by one of my friends called Nick Bendel. So Nick Bendel is organizing 500 lunches in Sydney, and I was his 201st lunch. So he invited his 250 lunches to celebrate this initiative. I met 250 people, different people coming from different backgrounds. Um, there was one guy who asked me that, I think, who asked Nick that he's looking for someone to run his podcast or kind of help him in his podcast. And Nick said, "Oh, we already have someone here who runs his own podcast. You can get connected to him." And that's how I got connected to him. I wasn't knowing that person. Similarly, there was another person who told me that they write grants, so they are grant writers for charities and not for profits. And I'm
Mm.
connected to one not for profit, and that founder reached out to me, I think, a week back, and he said that he's looking for some grant writers for his charity. So I connected that person to that founder, in Australia. So I'm just giving you one example of I met strangers at a networking event and how I connected those opportunities to the right people.
It's not taking a lot. You just need to be there. You just need to be communicative. You just need to go to people, just talk to them, and it's helping you and it's helping others. And well, I think it's just amazing and it's making a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I met two people who, in fact, sent me a list of five speakers, and they said that these can be really good speakers for your podcast. And you can talk to them on LinkedIn, give our reference, and they might also help you in some other things. I said, wow, thank you so much. I wasn't expecting that, but thank you so much.
Definitely.
So that's the power of LinkedIn and networking. Now, moving to another question, Jonathan, is what would you be advising to people who are thinking of switching to tech sales or who are very young at this point of time, younger than me, of course, who haven't done tech sales at all? So, what would be your top 3 or 4 tips for them?
Mm. So, speaking for people here in Germany, going into sales is a lot of times people think, oh, we get a lot of money, we get a company car, because in Germany we have like a rule you can get a lease car from your company and you're not paying like a lot of money, it's quite cheap. And you're getting that when you're going into sales. So this is definitely wrong, and you will definitely fail if you're choosing that way because of money and because of the car. You need to love what you're doing, but I guess that's not only in sales; that's in every job you're doing. But that's very very important. You need to know why you're doing that to be successful. Because as I mentioned in sales, there's times where it's getting tough and where it's getting really tough. And just recently, I had one of those times. So you need to be sure. And as I mentioned, the first tip is you need to love communication. Communication, 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 because otherwise you cannot talk to customers. You need to talk to strangers. And well, that is the most important fact. And the second, be eager to learn. You need to learn every day something new. Every customer is different, every project is different. So stay tuned and just, be open and be open to everyone, like even the janitor. Maybe you can learn a lesson from the janitor, that's fine. And people need to learn that as well. So that's definitely the most important tips I can give you over here.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that you have definitely touched base upon is to be a good communicator. I also feel that before being a good communicator, it is also important for you to be a good listener. Understand the pain points of your customer. Sometimes I have felt this thing. I made this mistake around when I started doing tech sales 2 years back.
Mm,
I used to be a very good communicator, but not a very good listener.
mm.
And then I had to inculcate these skills over a period of time where I gave my customer the time to speak, speak, and speak. Once I've understood their problems, and once I know, okay, so this is what their problem is, and I've already built in a story in my mind as to how am I going to tell this customer to about my product and sell him the case, right?
I was I was always very nervous when talking to like in front of a group, and oftentimes when you're going into meetings, it's not only one person, it is a group. So I was very nervous, and I was like, oh no, you need to think about a lot of things. You need to present your product, you need to listen to the customer, and you need to do that and that and that. And I think that is something in the beginning that is very normal, and even I am still learning on that. And well, my boss is always saying it is a mix. Like the customer need to talk 60% of the time, and you need to talk 40% of the time. And that is exactly what you were saying. You need to listen to the customer. And the most important fact, be qualifying, 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 qualifying. If you know what the customer needs and what's exactly the pain point. So why does your customer want a new solution? Why is he taking part in the meeting? So no one is just joining a meeting out of no reason. So there's definitely a reason, and there's a pain point that the customer is trying to solve. So try to find out, listen to the customer, ask, and that's very important, ask the correct questions so he's opening up, and then you will definitely have a very good experience yourself. I mean, you feel it yourself. So if the meeting is like going very smooth, and my sales coach is saying the talk need to have a fluff, um, and you can realize it as soon as that is happening. You know the customer is opening up, and you know you're getting to the point where it's painful for him, and they can like help him with your solution. And that's what you need to think of. It's your solution, and you can help him to maybe even like go up the career ladder with that solution.
Absolutely, Jonathan. I totally agree with you on that part. And that's why I thought that I should raise this point that while communication is so important, listening is equally important for everyone. But before we end today's session, I would definitely want to ask you one thing, because you are so active on LinkedIn. You generally create very engaging content. I don't say this to everyone, because there are some specific people I really find who create and have some kind of content and following, which really makes them a bit different than others. You are definitely one of those. I can recollect some of the other names as well at the moment. Uh, there is one guy called Patrick.
Yeah.
He's also from Germany. He's working as an account manager at ChargeBee. His content is very unique as compared to others. Similarly, there is a guy called, and we had invited Patrick as well earlier on this year to this podcast. So Patrick has been one of our speakers. We
Oh,
also invited Deepak Vadera. Deepak Vadera, who is working in Leadfeeder as a sales manager. We had also invited him to talk on LinkedIn earlier this year. He also creates very good content for B2B sales. This is my recommendation. Now I'll be talking to you and asking you, what are some of the LinkedIn experts and books that you follow for tech sales?
yeah. So the first name on my list was actually Patrick, because I really like this guy. He's making very very good content. But definitely on second place, and one of these girls you already had in your podcast. It's the SDRs of Germany, Matthias Schaper and Helena Klaus. They're making very very good content, and even their community is very very good, because as I mentioned, sales can be challenging, and so to have a community, and these guys build a very very nice community for everyone. Um, that is very amazing, and like helping you in tough times. And apart from that, another very good sales coach, or maybe on LinkedIn, he's called Holger Bröhr. It's also a German guy, but he's making very very good content. He's very strict and on point, and he's telling you definitely, well, also the tough things maybe you don't want to hear, but you need to hear. So he's very very good. And if you're talking about tech stuff, it's Christopher Pacher. He's from Austria, but he's also a very good guy. He's also a podcast host. His podcast is State of Process Automation, and that is very helpful if you're going into tech. You need to somehow speak the language of the people you're talking to. Like if you're talking to a CIO or maybe an architect or something like that, you need to somehow have their wordings. And I think that podcast is helping you in that, because they're CIOs speaking, and you know what they have in mind, what they are working on currently, and that will definitely help you in your sales experience for the next customers. And apart from that, if you're in an analog guy, and if you still want to have like a proper book in your hands, I guess the Challenger Customer is very good, because decision making these days is different to maybe 20 years ago. Because today you have more decision makers, and that is exactly what this book is about: decision making and finding your champion. So that is definitely a recommendation from my side.
I visited my business mentor yesterday, with whom I co-founded this podcast. His name is George Mavros.
Mhm.
He's 67 years old. He has written this wonderful book. I don't know whether people can see that, but it's called "Never Fear a Business Decision Again." It's written by George, and he has shared his 40 years of sales experience in that. He hasn't done tech sales in general, but he has been doing different kind of sales, and he has explained how you can do negotiation, how you can talk to a customer, and do all those kind of things. So, and with Helena, I had invited Helena a few days back. She was a really insightful speaker. We talked about storytelling and other things,
Mm.
and I feel that they're doing a good job in terms of creating a community of SDRs. And I have stolen away that idea from her now, and I asked her that maybe I should be the first person to create something called as SDRs of Australia, because
Yeah,
there is no one who has done that. Maybe I can start a channel on LinkedIn and have all the SDRs together, or probably I can have one series of SDRs of Australia as a podcast series in UGP itself. So we can run some episodes with SDRs of Australia.
definitely. There's also SDRs of Israel, I guess. I've seen that on LinkedIn. There's one amazing girl who's doing that as well. And honestly, just do it. It's helping a lot of salespeople to have a community, to talk to someone who's in the same situation. It's just sometimes helping a lot. So just do it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I really appreciate your time. I understand that you are taking your time on a Sunday morning. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate, and I hope to see you again in this podcast series. And I also hope to see you day after tomorrow. I know it will be a working day for you, Tuesday morning. But I would definitely want to invite you to our first anniversary on the 30th of August on Zoom. I'm sure you can meet some other wonderful speakers who have been invited to this podcast in the last 1 year as a networking. Maybe, have some common, create some value for people in that session.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. And yeah, for you as well. A nice Sunday evening, I guess.
This is an Ultimate Global Podcast. Hello, and welcome to our special weekly podcast on trending international and social affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.